that I've been emergency preparedness minded my whole life because my mom and dad were very much thought that way. We had our storage room, we called it the fruit room. And they have an acre, that's their garden. We call it the field because it was a field when we bought it, but they have like 50 fruit trees and a huge garden and berries everywhere. And so I was raised to be prepared. My dad was a cement contractor during the 80s. And we know, if you guys think about it, those who are older, you know that construction fell big time. And it was because of our food storage that our family was able to survive. 7 kids, my grandma and my mom and dad. So very much food storage minded. 3 years ago, actually 10 years ago, I taught this class, revamped it. 3 years ago, I was called to be the emergency preparedness person in my ward in section 9. And what we started doing is monthly preparedness classes that I held in my home. And so this is, you'll see the slides that I have, a lot of them are, some are religious based. I'm sorry, I know this is a city, but the city is broken down in sections according to wards. And so it is what it is, and that's where this lecture comes from. So, anyway, done it my whole life. And so you're gonna get my thoughts. You know, when you do a class like this, you don't know who your audience is going to be. You'll have to kind of teach to the middle somewhat. So I won't probably be reading those chat questions, but now you can just break in or whoever, I don't care if you interrupt me, that's fine. So hopefully I can answer some questions or at least give you some ideas, and that's the key, I think. So I'm going to share my screen and we're going to get going with, can everybody see that?
Looks great.
Okay. Is it there? Okay. So our theme was getting yourself prepared 1 month at a time. If anybody's done anything with emergency preparedness or food storage, you understand that it can be very, very daunting. It can be complicated. It can be frustrating, and many times you just quit. And sometimes, sometimes it's time consuming because, especially when you're new at it, and it can be hard, but it doesn't have to be hard. And so when we taught this class, me and some other people, we said, okay, we're going to just focus on one thing at a time and not overwhelm people. Keep it at an hour. So let me just see why this is not okay. So President Monson said this, and I really believe this, and I think it's really cool. Kind of bad cool, but we've lived through this. We do live in a turbulent times. Often the future is unknown, therefore it behooves us to prepare for uncertainties. If you guys remember a year from this month-ish, next month-ish, there was a lot of uncertainties. And so it was crazy. And there are some things as I look back on it, concerning food, some things, let me just tell you an example. Like, I have a pretty good food storage program that I'm happy with, that meets our needs. But I grew up, like I told you, and there were some times when we had to use milk, dry milk. And I have awful memories of that taste. In fact, I know that taste still, and I don't ever want to taste that again. I hated it. And so just a couple of days, probably a week into everything shutting down and nothing on the shelves and everything, I had a panic attack because I only had a gallon of milk left in my fridge. And I had remembered that you can freeze milk. You don't have to do anything. You just take the jar, the gallon, and stick it in the freezer, and it will be fine. Most of the time it won't explode or anything like that. And I don't know why I thought that I hadn't been doing that. And so I had this panic attack, and I was able to find 4 or 5 gallons and stuck it in my freezer, and I was okay. But that's really the only panic attack I had a year ago when it came to food. And so preparedness can cause peace. And I think that's important that we remember that when we feel like we've done everything we can get through these times a lot better. So the question I have is, why are you here? And that's the question I asked just a little bit ago. Some of you want to, is there a way we can do it better? Or there's some things like, how do you do this? Because I found problems in the way I'm doing it. Maybe you're like brand new, and because of this last year's events, you are seeing the need to have a food storage program set in place. And so, whatever the reasons are, I'm glad you're here. And I hope not to overwhelm you, but to give you ideas. And Natalie is more than welcome to put my phone number or my email or my contact, however she wants to do it. And I'll be glad to talk one-on-one with you, FaceTime, Duo, this, Zoom, and I have a lot more material, a lot more things I can present to you, but I'm going to kind of keep it to give you some ideas today. So, so why are you here? Now, this might be a little bit blurry, but for some of you, this might be an optimum food storage program, and it is beautifully neat. And if you really look and analyze it, it looks like it's a well-balanced food program. But if you really understand emergencies and your food storage program, there's one error in this right off the bat. Does anybody want to turn their mic on and tell me what it is?
If there's an earthquake, it's all going to end up on the floor in one big heap with some things even broken.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But so that's why it can get very overwhelming. But this is beautiful. And this is, I think, what we kind of all would love to have is something so beautiful. And to me, this space looks like a really big space. Some people don't have this kind of a space, but this would be the ideal if you made some changes so that you put some bars up there, or maybe different kind of shelving or whatever, that these people could survive a long time. Okay. So tonight I want to talk at first 7 things. Now, these aren't sequential. There's just 7 things that I want to bring to your mind. Okay. Of how to really think about your food storage program and make sure you think about them. Because if you don't, then it seems like you might fail at certain things, or find that you're not being successful, or it's not working. And so these are my 7 suggestions. The first one is set specific goals. What is it that you want to achieve? Do you want 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 1 month, 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, 1 year of food storage? I don't care what you want, but you should, because if you have a goal of 1 week, then your whole program is different than mine, which would be maybe a year, or whatever the case may be. What are your goals? What do you want to achieve? For Karen, it was, I need to make sure my rotation is going out proper. So she needs to think when we build the shelving and how you rotate and everything, that you have a plan. Like my goal is, I don't want to waste the food that I'm storing, and I need to have a plan in doing that. So whatever your goal is, that's perfect. So just remember that, have a goal. The next thing is, as you're thinking about that goal, think about everything else. Where am I going to put my food storage room? What size is shelves? How deep? How tall? What about the condition of the room? Is it going to be hot? Is it going to be in a place where you won't be able to access in a major disaster, earthquake situation? Think about these things. I just moved into this house 5 years ago, and at my old house, it was underneath the porch and everything's perfect. When I moved here, this house lacked storage. And for the first year or two, we talked and talked and talked about where are we going to put our food storage room, because we didn't know. And then after a little while, I realized where we could put it. And yes, it cost us some money to get a contractor in to build the storage room where we wanted it. And it's beautiful, and it's perfect, and it works for us. It's not as big as our other one because my family is getting smaller. But that's the thing about food storage. It's a living, breathing thing. It's always going to change, and so you need to remember that as well. And then you need to ask yourself just tons of questions. And some of those questions you're going to be able to think about tonight as we continue on with the lecture. Is there's just a lot going on. And this is, again, where people get overwhelmed, but you don't need to get overwhelmed. And I'm going to present 3 plans tonight of how you can get food storage up and going and be more prepared in your life in that area. Another item is to keep it balanced. You don't want 3,000 cans of soup. I can tell you, you will, if an emergency and you have to live on soup every day, you won't want to eat. And if you're living through like an earthquake or a major disaster situation, you will get food fatigue and you will not want to eat. And you're going to need to make sure your nutrition level is up. Again, keeping it balanced with nutrition as well. And different kinds of food. And don't forget to store the foods that bring you happiness, whether it's candy or whatever, because remember, in bad situations, you're going to want those comfort foods as well. So don't forget that. Now, I understand food storage can be different ways, but I always look at food storage as an emergency situation, because other than that, it's just my food store. But in a in an emergency situation, it's my storage that will keep me alive. So remember to keep it balanced. A lot of people will go and they'll spend hundreds of dollars on freeze-dried foods. Well, my husband would die. He hates those freeze-dried food. I have a freeze dryer, but I don't freeze dry meals. I freeze dry the produce from my gardens, the berries, the peaches, the apples, the apricots, raspberries, blackberries, vegetables, herbs. I freeze dry that stuff. But you got to remember, if you don't like some things, don't go be spending hundreds of dollars on something you don't like, or something that you will not use. Well, freeze-dried stuff lasts 30 years. Yes, they do. And yes, it is better than nothing. But there's things to consider in every part of the program that you do with food storage. Meaning, if you just do freeze-dried, well, you got to make sure you've got water and a way to heat the water, and a whole bunch of other things. So keep things balanced nutritionally and variety as well. Any questions? Okay. All right. Now, this is a factor, and some people call it a whole bunch of things. In my lecture and as I teach, I call it the what if factor, because guess what? No matter what you do, no matter how prepared you are, no matter how much food storage you have, there's always the question of what if this happens. Okay. So let's just talk about that freeze-dried meals that you've purchased. What if all your water has been ruined or contaminated and you need to live off that freeze-dried food? What if all the food that you have stored are in cans and you have no way to open or heat those meals? What if the emergency is a huge earthquake and you cannot get to your food? What if, and you can just keep going. This is the daunting part about being prepared. With food storage or even in emergency preparedness, is what if, because you will never ever be able to satisfy that question, and that's the hard part. So keep that in mind. What if my jars that I've canned all my stuff in fall and break on the floor? What if my shelving falls apart? What if? And so as you think about those what if factors, as you think about keeping balanced, as you think about your goals, sit down, write it down, and plan for those things. And it doesn't need to be complicated. You don't need to start at the end. Start at the beginning. Start simple. And the key is just to start. So, and that's the last step that I think is important, just to remember, just to start. So today I'm going to present 3 plans. I'm going to start with the easiest one that I think, and you can work all 3 of these plans, and I work all 3 of these plans. The first plan is anytime, well, let me back up. So a couple, 2-3 years ago, I had Natalie come out the first time we started teaching these classes, and I asked Natalie, okay, we're out here in Bluffdale. You're the emergency person. You go to these meetings. How long will people in Bluffdale be without services and whatever? How long will we be on our own? Tell me, and if you know the answer, don't say it. But if you don't know the answer, guess, how long do you think Bluffdale citizens will be without services in a major disaster? Open up your mic and tell me.
2 months.
2 months. That's 80 days. Okay.
2 weeks.
2 weeks. That's 16 days. Oh, sorry, 14 days. What else? Give me one more idea. Natalie, wouldn't you love it if we'd be without services for only 2 weeks? Natalie told me, and it might be changed now. She can jump in here if she wants. And she says we need to be prepared to live on our own, be by ourselves for 4 months, guys. Can you imagine storing 4 months of water? And 4 months of food isn't that big a deal, in my opinion.
That's-
But
Now that is a pretty big disaster, of course.
Right.
That's
that's
catastrophic. That's, you know,
major disaster, major earthquake is what I think. I always plan for the worst when I do my stuff. So, all right. So 4 months, and that's big time. But so here we go. Plan number 1. Every time you make a meal, make it extra. Save yourself some time. Just double up the spaghetti or double up the lasagna. Stick it in the freezer bags and freeze it. In 30 days, you will have a month's meals. Can we do this, guys? You do have to interact here, else this is going to be super hard. So this is simple, don't you think? How many of you guys do freezer meals? Now, another way of doing this, guys, it doesn't mean you have to always make it, but you can go to the store and buy the frozen lasagnas and the frozen macaroni and cheeses and the, whatever. Those are the same concept. Anybody else do this, freezer meals? Think about it. This is very simple. If you don't know where to start and you want to get started and you want to feel some security of making sure you can feed your family, start making extra and freeze the food. Or when you go to the store, buy 2 lasagnas instead of 1, or an extra bag of chicken nuggets or whatever that meal is. Okay, that's okay. If you have to save up money to buy a freezer, do it. Now you're going to say to me, you guys who are major emergency preparedness people, what if your freezer power goes out? Absolutely. There's a flaw in every plan. It's called the what if factor. And so you are just putting things together so that what you would do in that situation, in a bad disaster or whatever, is you'd pull from these foods first. And you'd eat from your freezer first, and then you'd go to your canned items, and then eventually go to that freeze-dried stuff that my husband hates, right? That I do have freeze-dried meals. Will he ever eat them? I hope we never do. I hope I waste every penny I've spent on freeze-dried foods. Okay.
Actually, I have a freeze dryer too. And I actually freeze dry our food, like spaghetti or a roast beef, refried beans. And it tastes just like, actually, to me, I think I'd rather freeze dry stuff that we've already eaten rather than freezing it. It takes less.
Absolutely.
So
But not everybody is as lucky as you and I to have those wonderful machines. I love mine, but I have tried, one of the best things you can freeze dry are peaches. Oh my goodness, they're candy. And my husband does not like the texture. He just does not like the texture. So
well, if you're starving, you'll eat it.
well, that's a mentality a lot of people think, and you think that, but I think when you really start thinking about emergency preparedness and all the emotional problems you're going to be going through, you don't want to deal with that. You want to eat the foods you love, just like you said. You freeze dry the things that you eat, and that is a wonderful plan. So plan number 1, an easy plan, starting very simply, something that you are familiar with, that you don't have to think about too much, is just make extra. All right. Plan number 2.
Sorry, I have a question real fast about that.
Yeah.
How long, if it's like vacuum sealed and everything, how long are those going to last? Like
so if you start, yes, absolutely. I forgot to say that. If you do the research, they're saying that freezing those menus that you make are probably good 3 to 4 months. And it all depends on how you freeze them. If you just stick them in a Ziploc bag, probably less time because there's a lot of air. We're going to talk about that in a second. But so if you can get that, what is the thing called? You take all the air out.
Vacuum seal.
Vacuum sealer, and you can seal them and suck that air out. They're going to last longer. But I always tell people 3 months is how long you should rotate through your freezer meals. Okay. All right. Plan number 2, another very, very simple. I don't want to make it complicated. It's a very simple plan, and I'll start here. I want everybody to think of your most favorite 6 recipes that you make. I mean, we all have those go-to recipes, okay? Every one of us. And hopefully you have more than 6, but we're just gonna take 6 of your recipes. And if you look on the screen, you're gonna see this one is chicken enchiladas, okay? And you're gonna see the recipe on the left, all right? Here it is right here. And this one calls for enchilada sauce, a can of chicken, peppers, and olives, and then tortilla shells that they make from scratch. Okay, so she's gonna say, okay, to make this recipe 5 times, so 6 recipes for 5 times, she needs 5 of those. See that column right here? Then she's gonna go, or you would go to your shelf, whether it's just your pantry or a food storage room or wherever, and you're gonna say, oh, I have 1 on hand, so I then need 4 cans of enchilada sauce, and you're gonna do that for the whole recipe. Now you're gonna do that with the 6 recipes. Next step you're going to do is you're gonna go to the store, here's your shopping list, and you're gonna buy everything you need on your shopping list for those 6 recipes, and voila, in one night, you have a month's of food storage. This isn't rocket science, but sometimes people make it so complicated, okay? And okay, so we have more than 6. Let's just say you take your favorite 10. All you have to do is times that by 3 and you've got a month. Or if you take 10 and times it by whatever, you can decide, I want at least 2 months of food storage. The more recipes, the better, because you would get recipe fatigue if you have to eat chicken enchiladas every 3rd day or every 5th day, right? And of course, this is for dinner. And you can do that for breakfast. Is a little bit more complicated because it's just breakfast. I mean, you can do your cereals and stuff and your pancakes and stuff, but I mean, that is, to me, it's easier. It's not more complicated. It's easier to do breakfasts. And lunches, a little bit more complicated. You could think of soups and, the SpaghettiOs and the raviolis and stuff like that, or whatever you eat in an emergency situation if you want to do that. But if we're talking about dinners, what do you guys think about this idea? Could you do this? I mean, like I said, I don't know who my audience is, but this is very, very simple. And we kind of do this anyway. I mean, I have a to-go list every time I go to Peterson's or Walmart or Sam's or whatever. I always go to those foods and I always stock up on the bread, the milk, the whatever. I've always have those. And so this one's a very simple, something that's not going to overwhelm you, and it's going to be great. Okay. All right. Any questions on this plan? Okay. All right. The next one is the complicated plan. Now, this one is one that I've sent over to Natalie that is on the website that she has. And you may have seen this. Okay. And I noticed that the uncomplicated one was already on the city's website. And I don't know where she got it. I think it's actually a church program, but I don't remember. I've had it for years. I changed it. I added to it. You could say it's more complicated, but to me it's easier. Okay, so follow with me. Now, this is when you really want to get serious. This is not your total wheat storage program, although it's part of it, because it takes the major things that you need in a 1-year plan, and it helps you identify what you need. So let me walk you through the columns. First of all, I print one off every year, and that's why you have this here. And every year before all the food storage or the case lot sales come on, I go through my food storage room. I actually do it more often, but I for sure do it big time. This is when I rotate everything, and I put the year on it, and I go through everything that I need. So, sorry. All right, so here we go. You can see it's now what I need to do. I got to go back one more time. Let's see. I'm going to stop sharing here, and I'm going to go to my here. All right, so here's the program right here. Can you guys see it? Can you see it, guys? Someone tell me you can see it.
Yes.
We can
Perfect.
see it.
All right, so here we go. Here are the items you should store. Okay, this is a list that they say if you want a well-rounded food storage program, it's in this column. Okay, and I'll go down it in a minute after I describe the columns. Okay, this column is per person needed or wanted. So if you were going to store water, because water, you can live how many days without water and how many days without food, people? It's
3
the rule
days.
of, the rule of
days,
3. You can live a lot longer without food, but you have to have water. So here we go. 2-week supply of is what they recommend is a 2-week supply of water per person is 14 gallons. So what they're saying is a gallon a day. I think that is totally not enough, especially when you talk about cleaning and all that kind of stuff. So 2 gallons a day, that's that column, okay, right there. That's how much you need per person. How much on hand? You're going to write that here. Always got to know what you got, okay? Now this one, I maybe should have put it in this one, but I wanted to have how much you have on hand first because total quantity needed, okay? What does that mean? You need to see this X right here. How many people are you preparing to store your food for? In my family, there's only 3 of us at home, but my food storage, I plan for 12 because I want to make sure those kids who are married and my grandbabies have a place to come just in case. Okay, I have more money now than I did when I was their age. Okay, so I can store more food or have the ability to buy more food right now. All right, see that? Right there on the axis. So let's say 3 or whatever. So if I had no water stored and I had 3 people I'm storing, 3 times 14 is 12. Is that 42 gallons of water? Doing fast math? 3, no. But anyway, doesn't matter. You know what I'm talking about. So that's how much water I need. Then if you have right here, if you had water in hand, you would subtract that and that's how much you need to buy. And these columns I just put because sometimes it's nice to know from year to year, because when case lot sales come on, you're like, oh crap, what was it last year? Is that a good deal or should I wait for the Smiths ones? Or is Harmon's going to have one? Or what about Macy's or Albertsons or whatever store? And so I like to put on the price per I bought those items that year I bought things, okay? And then the expiration date, that one is when I have tons of time, which I never have, but it is nice if you're trying to be really organized to say, I do have a lot of items that are going to expire pretty soon. We're going to talk about the best by, used by, and all that stuff in a minute. And then over here, this is the cool column, okay? These 2 columns here and this column here, the first one, B column, and the H column are the ones that are so important because it tells you how long things can be stored from in optimal situations, which we'll talk about, okay? So here's your non-fat milk, the milk I never want to ever go into. I hope I waste it. 49 pounds per person. These are big numbers, okay? Now, do you have to live by these? No, use common sense. If there's other ways to get, for example, milk, that's good. Do that. And there's a lot of, see, look at this. Now, if you see here, you got the fruit drink mix, they're saying you need 3 number 10 cans, which is the church's cannery cans of fruit drink mix. You can see over here, 2-year shelf life. You see the non-fat milk was 20 years. Do you follow where I'm going? Does anybody have questions on this? Because this is what can overwhelm people, but this is how to have a quality food storage program that's well balanced and will meet almost every what if factor that you can present to your brain. So any questions? Okay, so I just want to scan down here, and I don't know how Zoom, how it works on yours if there's a delay. But you can see here that my first column here is the liquids. Now I added all this because I store more than what you saw, what you'll see on the city's page, the estimated food storage. It's a simple one. It's a more basic one, but you know what? I don't just store 49 pounds of evaporate or of non-fat milk, okay? So as I buy these things, I put in the columns what I buy each year. And then this is the cool thing. sometimes you're like, I don't know how many. Let's do something different, more, let's say apple juice. Apple juice, that's shelf stable, okay? So I may buy 2 cases at the Smiths, so I'll get 2, 4, 6, 8 of the gallons, and I maybe buy 4 of them, and I put them on my shelf. And the next year when I'm getting ready to go purchase things, I'm like, gosh, I only went through 5 of those. So that next year, I only probably need to buy what? 5, right? Because I'm only going through 5. So this paper can also help you identify for the next year. Remember, this would be last year's. The next year you get a new one, and on hand, how much on hand, you'll say, I only used 5 of those apple juices. I don't need to buy anymore. So over here, when you say, how much do I need to buy? You say 0, because I only need 5. I don't need to go buy any more, or I only want to get 5 to fill that space up on my shelf. Is everybody following? Nod or not? Okay, I hope is this helping? Is this helping you guys or not?
This is fantastic, and you get a gold star for life.
All right, thank you. All right, so I'm going to just scan down here. And like I said, this is on there. See, these are all my drinks, and I fill that in. If I knew there was an expiration date, I put it over here in this column. Now, this is not, it could be, but it's not the best buy or use by dates, because those are different. We'll talk about it, like I said. So here's our grains. Okay, so here we go. Wheat for 1 year. And remember, this is a year, people. For wheat that we never touch, but's in our buckets. We may even got them from our parents. 130 pounds of grain. Now, let me tell you this. I will never eat 132 pounds of grain. And times that by 12, I don't think so. That's just going to be a waste in my storage room. And so, but I do eat oats. I do eat rice. I do eat pasta, pancake mix, barley, corn, flour. That is all your grains. And I think we forget that I store flour for 2 and 3 years and it's still fine. Now, I'm not a major baker. So someone who likes to bake can do all that stuff. Okay, but I can make the essentials with the flour that I keep for 2 and 3 years, and it's just fine. Okay, notice over on our columns that we have lifespans, shelf life. And that's what I think is so important, that if you date everything, which you better date everything, then you can see how long they'll last. But notice, I know this jumped up on the other screen, but this is my grain column. See all the things? Now I left room for you to, some people buy quinoa, and some people spelt, and some people all this other stuff, and so that room to do that. And if you have, let's say you never buy pancake mix, that's fine. Leave it blank. But you can delete it, because the spreadsheet I gave you is just a Word document, and you can make this your own. If you want a different column or add a column or whatever, do it. I don't care. This is what worked for me, and I think it would work for a lot of people. Here's our legumes column, okay? Kidney beans, all your beans. Now, one thing you need to remember is, yes, I have the dried stuff, but I don't use, a lot of people do, but I don't use the dried stuff because I forget. I'm not someone who plans my meals out in a week. And so I'm like, just give me the refried beans out of the can, or give me the black beans out of the can. That's already done, that's all got liquid in all the garbanzo beans. So all those things, they can be dry, they can be freeze dried, they can be dehydrated, they can be in cans. All those things go into here. Now look right here. See this? The legumes is 62 pounds per person in a year. Well, that's a lot of beans, but it's a lot of choices. Okay. You don't have to just say red beans or whatever. Okay. Chili beans, whatever. And again, chili. I buy chili all the time. That's part of your beans. Okay. And others. Here's your legumes. Let me keep going. I just want to show you. Here's your meats. Okay. All the different kinds of meats. Now, I grow our own beef. We've grown our own turkeys. and our own pigs. And I put that on there, and I put the pounds, and I kind of changed this a little bit. Like I know I had 1 pig that year, or only a half a pig, or I got a half a cow that year for the beef and stuff like that. So this can be, I don't have numbers for you. The question you'll say is, how long can you freeze that for? Some people will freeze it for 2, 3 years. I'm eating meat right now that is on my 3rd year mark, and it's just fine. It all depends on how you freeze it. Okay. So if you look on other places, it will say 3 months, and I don't believe that at all. It's too expensive to throw it away. All right, cooking. I have everything on here. Cooking essentials. I put down everything, and I know, see again, I've got some numbers that you can go by. I do not need, let's see, 8 times 3 is 24 pounds of salt. So some of these things I think are way off, but if I had to use my food storage and couldn't go to the store, I would probably need that much. But remember, I say this now, but we've lived in a problem for a whole year, but I've probably used more salt this year than I ever have. So these are good things. I'm like, some of these things are insurance plans for me. I'll get them. And if I have to throw them away, it was insurance that I had them if I needed them. If I don't, that's fine. All right, so I don't want to spend a whole bunch of time, although this is important. Here's my vegetables, okay? And you can see the poundage of dried and all of them. One thing I found 4 years ago is I didn't realize that potatoes that were canned that you can buy in the store were actually kind of good. I've always just bought fresh potatoes. And so that I put that into my, and I've had freeze dried potatoes too, but dehydrated, but I didn't know that the cans were really good. And so that's how some of my food storage has changed, by finding new foods, just by experimenting or finding recipes. Like, I didn't know that works good. All right. And so more vegetables, lots of vegetables here, guys. And then you got your fruits, and you've got your fruits and your fruits, and let's see what else, and more fruits. And I kind of grouped them together. Oh, this is my jams. And remember, this is also keeping tabs of what I did the year before. So you know how, Karen, you said you didn't go through some of the stuff, or you didn't rotate it out? Well, by doing this, you're going to be doing this at least once a year, and you're going to know a couple of things. Like, for instance, I always bought SpaghettiOs. I hate SpaghettiOs. My kids liked them. I don't like the taste of them in the can. They taste like tin to me. Taste this, the applesauce the same way in the cans. I just don't buy them anymore. But when I moved here, I realized how much food I wasted because I don't like them. So I threw a lot of it away because it was quite old. But store what you eat, and this list will help you understand what you eat and what you don't eat. So and we can keep going. I got your fats and oils. Now remember, with your fats and oils, their shelf life is very, very short. So remember that. And again, insurance policy. I keep a lot of cooking oils, but I know I throw that and peanut butter away. Insurance policy for me. So I have it when I need it. And it just keeps going, guys. I think it's a 14-page document. I print it off every year, and I keep it in a binder so I can resource back for costs and everything. And everything's there. It's my grocery list for food storage. And so are there any questions with this? No, nothing yet. Y'all just getting it? No, not going to challenge me in any way. All right, let's see. Let's go back here.
There are a couple questions from the chat that I could read.
Okay, go ahead. And you want to read it? Who's telling me that? Is that Natalie?
This is Raylina. Sorry.
Okay.
So the first question was, is this sheet on the website, or how do we get a hold of this?
Natalie's going to, I sent this to Natalie. She's going to put it on there. Okay.
Okay.
So if you want to compare it, this is good. Already on there is the food estimating storage program that the Bluffdale City has, but then you're going to see my version of it. Okay. So you can have that. Now, again, don't make it so complicated. If this is, this is detailed to crossing the T's and dotting the I's, because I want it to be that way. I want to know where I'm at. Okay. That's just how I did it. Okay. All right. Anything else? Oops.
The next question was, what brand of freeze dryer do you recommend?
I only know Harvest Right, and if you get on, there's a whole bunch of Facebook pages. You'll see a lot of people have problems with it, and it sounds like their HR department's not really great. But I've had mine now for 2 years. Is it Yolanda? You're there too, right?
Yep.
I have never had any problems with mine. Have you?
Nope. Had
So
mine for about 3 years.
yeah, and I think what's happened if you this past year, number one, they skyrocketed in price. And then what happened is it was like literally a 3-month wait because of COVID and everything. Now you can get them anywhere. You can get them at Tractor Supply, you can get them at IFA, you can go online and buy them through um, uh, Harvest Right, but they're here locally, and that's what I don't even know the other brands. What we did is our ward group, we called Harvest Right, and this was 3 years ago, and said, hey, we want to do bulk buy what we give them for, and they saved us $200 or $300, and I think our ward together bought like 8 of them. And the funny thing is I bought one because I knew I needed one or wanted one. And the funny thing is I didn't even open it up for a year. I actually opened it last January when this all started coming down. I said, we got to figure this out right now. So I didn't even open it up, but I've had no problems. I have actually got going in right now. Marshmallows and Peeps, which marshmallows freeze dried are candy. Let me tell you, little mini marshmallows. Anyway, so hopefully that helps. But I like that one. Oops. Sorry, it just keeps going back. Okay, so there's 4 things you need to know that will ruin your food storage faster than anything. Temperature, moisture, oxygen, and the container you store things in. These are very, very, very important, okay? I believe the most important one that will ruin your food storage you will not know it's ruined is temperature. When I taught this class, I went to the dollar store and bought 15 thermometers that look just like this picture, and I gave one to everyone, and I said, I want you to mark for 1 month and come back and tell me every week or every day, do it at least once a week, and tell me what your temperatures were. And then they were able to see the huge fluctuations of what their room was. Heat will ruin your food storage faster, in my opinion, than any of those other things, although they're fast too, but it will spoil it. And so when I built my food storage room, I had a contractor come in, and we put a wall unit for air conditioner, the window mount, and we mounted it into that room. My food storage stays at 70 degrees during the summer, and it stays at 50 degrees in the winter, and I don't do anything in the winter. If it gets super cold, I have a little floor heater that I turn on so it won't go below 50. I keep my food storage room between 50 and 70 degrees, which is optimal. If you can keep your temperature there, your food will last even longer. Because guess what? Most of the time, you're not going to have a problem with moisture in your food because most of the time, the biggest thing is going to be your temperature, in my opinion. So I don't want to get so complicated. I did send over to Natalie, that will be on the website, more detailed scientific things about these 4 things that you can read, that I don't want to spend too much time. But just remember that these 4 things, and temperature being the most important, are the things that I think you should think about most. Okay. Some people will say, what do I store my food storage in? And I say, every one of these. Okay. What if? Okay. So if you stored everything in Mylar and didn't have it in a good place, the varmints could get into it. The cans are really, really good ones. The bottles are perfect for those home storage things. And your plastic things are just perfect if they are food grade. So make sure you research the stuff you buy it in, and make sure you do what's necessary to keep it safe. And you got your oxygen absorbers, which we'll talk about here. I think it's the next slide. And basically you need to put those in. If you've ever done stuff over at the church cannery, you always put those in. If you do the freeze drying, we do this all the time, right, Yolanda? You have to keep the moisture out of there, else a lot of that stuff will get ruined. So the rule of thumb, if you are doing this yourself, is 1 300cc packet for every gallon of product. Okay. Again, no, I didn't. I can send this over to Natalie. I can send you the document that I have on oxygen absorbers that will help you a little bit more. I'll leave time. So, okay, this is another question that is so crazy. People don't understand it. Basically, every one of these Best Buy, Used By, and Sell By are all but for the stores and the people who make the product. That's simply put. You do not need to throw any of this away because lots of the times it's well beyond it. Food for thought. When I taught this class last, I called the food bank and I said, how old of food will you take? And they said, we will take anything 5 years past any of these dates. 5 years past. That's my rule of thumb. If something gets past 5 years, I discard it. I get rid of it. Okay. And that just keeps me going. Like if the food bank who gives this to people who probably is very liable for a lot of stuff, if that's their standard, that's going to be my standard. So just remember 5 years past any of these dates and you should be good. The only thing different would be if you put this stuff into freezers. Some of that product has a less shelf life anyway, just because of what it is in a freezer. Anyway, okay. All right, this is the tasty tip of the night. Write this baby down, stilltasty.com. It is amazing. I'm gonna, what time are we at? Let me find my phone. I don't want to, okay, well, I'm not gonna go to it. I did have something up. Write this down. I guarantee you're gonna love this site. You can go on there and say orange juice, how long will it last? And it will tell you, and then it has a whole bunch of things, factors that tell you if it will last longer or shorter. Stilltasty.com. It's amazing, okay? All right, and that will help you. And everything's on there, guys, everything. So if in that list you say, well, this will only last 4 months, you can write that in the column if you want. All right, and these, this is just these are what you'll see in the plastic buckets. I don't think I've ever seen this, but I've seen these. And these are the ones that are food grade plastic storage buckets. Do not, let me repeat, do not store any of your food unless it has food worthy labels on it, okay? Because that will ruin it fast. Don't waste what you just did by storing it in the wrong bucket. Do not go to Home Depot, Lowe's, or Walmart and buy their cheap couple dollar buckets. They will not work, okay, for you. All right. This is tasty tip number 2. If you love your phone or your iPad, this app is amazing. I cannot remember. I tried to look today, but since I bought it, it doesn't give me a price. I believe it's Android as well as Apple or an iPhone. I have an iPhone. This food storage app is so close to what I just showed you that if you would rather not do papers, you can do this. Now, I'm not going to go into detail, but I can show you where the arrow is. You can put in the number of adults and youth you are storing for, and then it goes through all these groups. And if you see, let's see if one's right here. Let me go to the next one. So it does all of these areas, and you can see, let's look here at my grains. See my grains? There's 9 types of grains, and then you can add the grains. It is my program or that thing I wrote up in iPhone app worthiness. And so you can see that at this time when I did this, I had 48 pounds of 1,200 pounds of grains I needed. And that's like a lot, but I mean, like I did this just for examples, and you can see that it will track what you have. Now, the problem is it gets a little bit tedious every time you go to the store. So I would only use this once a year to help you with when you go to the case lot sales. And you can see this is all the stuff you can just totally, I added the pastas, and you can go in and say, I have a angel hair pasta, lasagna pasta, the bow tie pasta, there, all that stuff. And this app is a really good app. And the next slide shows you all the pastas that you can put in there. See, I had 12 bags of macaroni, which was this many ounces. Oops, you can put the ounces on there as well. All right, so let's see. That's what I've got. As far a couple of things. Rotating, that's the one question that Karen said. When I buy food storage, I try not to take it out of the boxes, like the soups and the cans of fruit and stuff. I keep them in the boxes, and I identify the boxes with the year with a marker. I keep in my food storage room tape a marker and a razor blade, and it never leaves that room. And I always know the date of those things. And every time I buy case lot sales, it's a pain in the butt. I hate it, but I do. I pull all the new off from the bottom, and they become the old, and I have to put the new I just bought on underneath. I have to do that with all my case lots of all that stuff. So rotating, you have those shelves that you can buy, the ones that you put and it kind of comes back down. I do not like those. I think they're too expensive, and I think they take a lot more room than what my system is. I just have shelves and stack on top of each other. But I know that was one of the questions of Karen's, is that I make sure that I rotate every year, and my family knows, like in fridges and everything, like when I do my home canning stuff, you pull from the left. You always pull from the left. And if you do not pull from the left, mom gets mad. If you're pulling in the middle, I get mad. You pull from the left because that's the oldest stuff. You pull from the top. So you have to create some standards and some things that you say, this is what we're going to do. We pull from the top, we pull from the left, depending on the situation. All right, that's all I have tonight. What are your questions?
So we have a few questions in the chat, and then I want to show everyone how to find those documents online. So here we are in the chat. Let's see, we have a question that says, Brenda said, one thing I store is supplies to bottle or process meats from my freezer. If the freezer isn't working, I need to preserve meats. So I think that's a good point, preserving lids, things like that for.
And it's also good if you'd had the situation, I always buy a lot right after I do all my canning. All the caps and things that I know I need for that next year, my Sure Gel and stuff, I always buy at the end of the season. Sometimes you can get them super cheap. One year we got cap bottles or packages of caps for like 10 cents. It was amazing. I bought everything they had and gave them to my mom and everything. But this year, when no one could find any bottling supplies, I had what I needed. And so, yes, think above what if. See, that's the what if. What if I can't have the stuff?
So it's a meeting about food storage.
So one more thing, another question.
I'll come check on you guys after my meeting's over.
Okay, let's see. So one more question we have is, my storage room is under my porch. And actually, this is a question I have too. It says, my storage room is under our porch and it gets very humid in the summer. Any way to help with humidity?
You know, I've never had to address that one. I'm just trying to think of my,
Maybe there's a dehumidifier. We need to Google that one.
yeah, that's what I was thinking. Okay, so one thing that we do also is not only do we have the air conditioner, but we also have a fan going in there in the summer too. And so that would help a little bit by rotating the air a little bit, but that one I don't know. I think you're going to have to Google it if it does get really humid in there. Some things that you could do, if it's under your porch, you can get a contractor to come out and drill a hole in there, bore a hole in there. And I don't think it'd be that expensive. It just depends on what your goals are and your priorities, and to get an in and an out vent so it doesn't retain that moisture in there. Does that make sense? You see these in like bathrooms and stuff as well. It will pull it through and take it out. And I think that's what would help a little bit there too.
Okay, another question we have. Karen said the food storage app costs $2.99. So she found that price. Someone said they lived in Japan and it was really humid there, and she had a dehumidifier. So that's a thing for people.
I find that funny in Utah that would be a problem, but I can get, it depends on also the side of your house. Mine was on the west side at the other house, and so it got more warm there because that west, heat was pretty tough in there. So it depends.
Okay, so can everyone see the website on Zoom? Hopefully everyone can see it.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So here we have the website. So if you want to find things from the seminar or any documents, just go to departments and emergency management. Everything for emergency management is here. And when you click on this, there's a lot in here. So one thing I want to tell you about the city website is this search bar. You can always type something in the search bar and that will help you find it. But if you go to departments, and then now we're into departments, I actually created a page that's for Preparedness Seminars 2021. So if you click on the Preparedness Seminar 2021, you can see that the video for water is here, and then I will get the food video on, and then each category has some links. So here we have the detailed food storage plan, recipe cards, 4 things that affects food storage. And then I will also put on the slides, if Laurie's okay with that. Here's the water seminar slides from last month. I'll put on the food seminar slides here as well. So any documents that we have from the seminars will be here with the video that can be rewatched or distributed. So I'll get that up next week.
Right.
Any
And
questions? Yeah.
Natalie, I don't know if it's proper to, if you guys want to call me and just, chat, you're more than welcome to. If you want, I can give you the number now, or I'll just give you my email and you can email me. It's lauriemaxfield@gmail.com. And I spell my name Laurie, lauriemaxfield@gmail.com. Also something, is it okay if I say something?
Yes,
Natalie?
please. Yes.
So also when I was teaching that seminar 3 years ago, I created an emergency preparedness book that is detailed like this somewhat. And if you're interested in that, we were going to sell it, but then I decided I didn't want to profit off of something that can make someone's life better. So if you're interested in that, you can give me a holler. And I just don't want to give it to you. I kind of want to show it to you because you got to kind of like this estimated one. You kind of got to see where I was going with it. And you're going to love it because it helps you. In an emergency, your brain is not going to work like you think it should work. I can guarantee you. And so everything is written down. And what if you're the one that dies or isn't home? The plan is there so that everybody can go to the book and say, okay, mom, or we have this, this, and this ready to go. And anyway, it's a cool book. So, or I can do a seminar if Natalie wants to do it later on in the year. Okay.
Sorry, your email again. Laurie Maxfield at
gmail.com.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, it is 8:32. So if you have, and we do have a Laura, you're amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and
Thank you.
us. Yes, thank you.
No problem.
Lots of thank yous. We're so grateful. And so it is 8:33. It's exactly 1 hour. So I know you still have lots of questions. So I'll get all of this posted this week, and please email Laurie with more questions. And next month we will be doing light and warmth. Yes, is that right? Shelter and warmth, not light. Shelter and warmth. And Connie Jones will be teaching that next month. So thanks for coming to our seminar tonight.
Okay. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
See you guys.